What's up, guys? Sub-Zero here, back for more set 18. Today we're going to go through the rest of the units. I'm going to try to get through 3 cost, 4 cost, and 5 cost today, so let's hop into it immediately. Azir here, an Eldritch Executioner summoner, and his summon is a little bit different. So his cast, he gains some attack speed and summons soldiers for the next few attacks, and then the attacks are replaced by commands which direct each soldier deal magic damage. So he summons these little soldiers and then turn his autos into that. He is an AP attack speed carry, so stuff like Winsu's. I tend to like a lot of these carries. They tend to be pretty fun. He also has built-in spell crit, so you don't need to worry about building that. And this also has pretty good synergy with Executioner, just like slowly ramping up your damage, slowly ramping up that bleed. It makes a lot of sense. You're going to want good frontline if you're playing with this guy is the main thing. Get like a Malphite for your Eldritch, which we'll talk about later. But looks pretty fun. Looks interesting. Definitely, I think you're going to want to get Summoner onto this guy when you're playing around him. Cassiopeia, Coven Spellweaver, Noxious Blast, poison the target and the nearest non-poisoned enemy, dealing magic damage over X seconds, and then poisons stack. So, if you can get her stacking up a lot, she can do this kind of like multiple poisons on everybody. Because she's always poisoning the target, so this lets her like shred through big tanks, but then she's also spreading poison to the rest of the board. This is almost like Malzahar in previous sets. I'm trying to remember which set I'm thinking of that of. You guys will tell me in the comments, but almost ideas of Malzahar, except obviously the poison doesn't like spread around like Malzahar's used to. So the upside is she can chew through big tanks with this. Once again, the downside is you need time, right? You need a lot of time here. I think mana should be pretty good on her just to get that poison tick, tick, tick stacking up a bunch. Obviously stuff like Blighting Jewel should be absolutely insane on this unit. Wonder if it's gonna have to like, I mean, like low-key, you know, if you remember like Blighting Jewel Malzahar is insane, exact same thing here, but Blighting Jewel Cassiopeia is gonna be absolutely insane. Diana, she's another one of these like Vanguard but not really tanks. So her ability is she gains a shield and then sends out a Moonlight Orb to the closest enemies, dealing some magic damage. So I'm imagining, especially with Ravager, that she's going to play a lot more as a carry than a tank here. It's just kind of the vibe. She also does have Lunar here, one of the 3 Lunar units that are not obviously Lux, means she's going to fit really, really nicely onto boards where, say, you play like a random Elune or an Aphelios, get the Diana in on top of that, get her in for Vanguard, play, you know, some Vanguard with blue buff or Tark or something. I mean, you can easily see a late game board capping around the combination of like Diana plus Tark plus a Loon, like every single chance you can get, you can put this package of units onto your board, do a ton of work. This is Vanguard's is not a team-wide buff trait, but it's just a nice trait to have, and especially for your Taric, as we'll get to a little bit more. Actually, we talked about Taric a little bit. All right. Fiddlesticks. This is gonna be crazy. So we talked about all of Fiddle's traits already. The Flora Fatalis being a really, really interesting one. Definitely plays really nicely with Defender, and then Fiddle is a Defender, is a Spellweaver, and then on cast, reduce the magic resist of the X nearest enemies by X, then drain life from them over X seconds, healing and dealing magic damage to each over the duration. This is Boombot Fiddlesticks, except has Defender built in as the trait, which is just crazy. If you remember, Bruiser Spat was obviously insane on Boombot Fiddlesticks, and we have a better trait than that in Defender, because Defender obviously scales really well with healing. If you have, you know, a 6 Defender Fiddlesticks here, healing up extra HP is going to be disgustingly valuable here. Also, you want to play for these long fights where you're shredding MR, ticking this. Once again, Blighting Jewel going to be really, really good. Range extenders were good on that old Fiddlesticks. So definitely going to be a horrifying artifact unit to play around. Really, really like echoes of Boombot Fiddlesticks, except potentially even stronger than that. So I'm really scared of this unit, especially of like a 6 Defender setup. Hecarim, Elderwood Vanguard, gain Armor for 3 seconds and restore HP. So really, really nice. Armor and HP synergize really nicely, and you have the Vanguard shield on top of that, which is really, really nice. Launch Special Riders at the nearest enemies, dealing magic damage and stunning them for X seconds. Now, the way that this reads is that you could throw this on the edge, and if maybe you kill like one frontliner and he walks up a little bit and he's hitting like he's close to one frontliner and then like another backliner is relatively close by, that he can actually stun backline. We'll have to see, but you know, if he's launching 3 Spectral Riders, you can actually stun backline a lot with this guy if you put him on the edge. So definitely something to think about positioning wise. If you put him in the middle, he's basically always going to be stunning frontline. If you put him on the edge, he might have a good chance at stunning backline. Aside from that, seems like a fantastic unit. Big 110 mana cast, so makes sense. And the Vanguard has really good synergy with the Armor and the healing here, so a really just nice all-in-one kit here. Kha'Zix has Rival, which I don't think we actually talked about, but basically Kha'Zix or Rengar both collect takedowns, and you can only field one and get the Rival bonus. If you play both of them, then they won't get the Rival bonus, and they get 3 if they take down the other one. The only thing is, there's no information so far on what Rival actually does. They said in, I believe it was the kind of like preview for the set, that Rival was going to allow you to upgrade Kha'Zix, which would be really, really cool. But not a lot of information around that. So I assume the ability is going to upgrade, or the unit is going to upgrade over time with the Rival stacks. Ability-wise, just leap to the furthest enemy within X hexes, dealing magic damage. If they have no adjacent allies, then deal magic damage instead, and gain mana. So you want to play for isolated stuff. The thing to note about Kha'Zix is he's an AP assassin for some reason. Very counterintuitive if you come from League, where this guy is just straight up AD lethality stuff. I've never seen an AP Kha'Zix in my life. I guess maybe ARAM is WAP, I think, but he's AP, so keep that in mind. He's like the AP counterpart to the AD Rengar, and then also he's going to be leaping to furthest enemy. I don't know if this is 3 or 4 hexes yet. If it's 4 hexes, you can do a lot of stuff where you put him third from the left or right and he jumps straight to backline. If he's 3 hexes, you really want to put him on the edge so that he can wrap a little bit and then jump to backline. Kog'Maw, we talked about how Kog'Maw was caustic, getting that Armor and Marshred immediately, is Invoker and Adapter here. So his adapter ability is he launches Acid at the tier 2 nearest enemies, dealing physical damage. The assumption is that this is AD ability, and he's below a certain percent of max HP, take extra physical damage, and then the AP one would be that he turns into like a damage over time. The damage over time sounds quite nice because you're obviously like constantly reapplying the Shred and Sunder here, and then AD would be like more of the carry version. So seems interesting. Still don't completely, get how this is going to work with this, but maybe it turns into an AP ability. I don't know. But yeah, seems like a cool unit to play around. Definitely something that you're just gonna like randomly throw into your board. Stage 3, get some Armor and Marshred for your entire board, and then maybe play him in some kind of like 3-cost reroll setups to get free Armor and Marshred. So looks good. Krug, another Rift Beast. On death, split into 2 Kruglets that just scale with HP. So the more HP you got on this guy, stuff like Warmogs, and that also scales up with Brawler is going to be really, really nice. His active is he gains more max HP, which is going to scale up this, these Kruglets, and then he rolls into the target dealing some damage. And then if you give him the Rift Beast selector on death, Krug and Kruglets shield allies for max HP. So just a really, really nice, efficient 3-cost tank. Going to be very happy to play around this in Brawler and play for this. Definitely could, play some kind of reroll line that plays, obviously, Rift Beast 3-cost reroll with the Raptors and then the Krugs. Go for both of these guys 3-star. Could be really, really nice as frontline. So yeah, I think this will be interesting, and just build HP on this guy. Master Yi. So he's an adapter, but he's a melee adapter, so almost making me think of like Ribbon, this set, where he can be AD or AP, but he's melee. His passive is every 3rd attack is a double strike that hits twice. Then on takedown, he gains a burst of movement speed. His AD adapter, it looks like, is this double strikes grant stacking attack speed, and then his AP is double strikes deal bonus damage and heal. So he kind of has a built-in, like almost Guinsoo type effect on the AD version, which makes a lot of sense because if you ever build Guinsoo onto him, then he's going to turn to AP because Guinsoo gives AP. So yeah, we'll see what's actually stronger. I don't know what the heal on this is, but I would think inherently like healing is going to be better on this guy just because he already has built-in double strikes. You're not going to need that much extra attack speed on this guy, and just slap a Guinsoo onto him, get the heal out of it sounds a lot better than going some other kind of like Kraken setup or something like that, but only time will tell. But looks really, really cool. I like to have these kind of like attack speed carries, but this can be AD or AP, which is really nice. Remus here, Sprite and Defender. Taunt, forcing enemies to attack this champion, and then for X seconds, gain Armor and MR, and then when the shield breaks, deal magic damage. So A nice unit if you are playing around melee carries to try to like taunt. We don't always get a taunt in a TFT set, but say you're playing like a Master Yi reroll setup, it might be nice to fit like a Rammus onto your board here, just to say, okay, if Yi ever takes aggro, then I'm going to have Rammus here, and he's going to taunt and eat a lot of this aggro. Definitely, his shield scales with AP, so you're going to definitely want to play around this guy. He also scales with MR here for this damage on the ability, so that's something interesting for Rammus if this text is correct, because usually he's an armor scaler, but in this one looks like he scales more with MR here, which is interesting. But I mean, build a declaw onto him and have a bunch of damage come out of this. Raptor, the other 3-cost Rift Beast, also a summoner and a rapid fire. Summon 4 untargetable tiny beaks at nearby for X seconds. Whenever Raptor attacks, the tiny beaks attack the same enemy, dealing physical damage. And then if you have orange buff, dealing physical damage reduces enemy armor by X. And obviously, all the little tiny beaks are also reducing physical damage, or dealing physical damage is coming from them and reducing armor. So looks like a beast. Kind of interesting that it's a melee rapid fire type unit, where it wants to get in there, do a bunch of auto attacks. A lot of auto attack based carries. The more that I look at this, you have Raptor here, you have Master Yi, you have Kog'Maw. No, this one wasn't the one I was thinking of. Azir as well. That's what I was thinking of. But yeah, like a lot of different potential like Guinsoo carries here. You can like slam a Guinsoo and then flex into if you do want to play like a frontline carry, a backline carry, whoever. Rengar, that other piece of the rival synergy, jump to the lowest percent HP and stab them dealing physical damage, and then heal for X% of their missing health. So there's a built-in heal, which is nice. You're not going to need to build healing on this guy most circumstances. Just want to get him casting, stabbing, and then very likely going infinite, depending on how much this heal is. You can definitely see something like Titan's Edge of Night going on this guy and just trying to let him get that stacked up and then just kind of like go infinite. So looks cool. And obviously, if you want to play one of these boards, I can very much see there being like a 3-cost reroll board that fits Rengar or Kha'Zix in on it, just depending on if you have AD or AP items, because they're basically interchangeable. Tristana, this one has such a long ability description. Attach an explosive charge to the target that lasts X seconds while active, gain infinite range and attack speed. So you basically just tether to that unit. You're always going to be hitting them. After the duration, the charge explodes and splits damage between all enemies within 2 hexes, dealing physical damage plus X for each attack while casting. If an enemy with an explosive charge on them dies, it attaches Trist's new target. So another attack speed unit, you want to keep getting autos off on this guy to charge up the explosive charge, and Hunter has a lot of synergy with attack speed, so another attack speed based carry, a ton at 3-cost here. Kind of a weird ability, but it's just like a big AD boom damage, and she also already has some built-in attack speed, so has a lot built into her kit. Has Hunter for AD, has built-in attack speed. It's a pretty overloaded spell and kit, honestly, so definitely going to be interesting to play around. And yeah, we also have this Fey trait, which I still don't completely understand. All right, Vi, Primal Juggernaut. She's really interesting. So on attack, she restores X HP just on attack, so another carry that wants to attack a lot. Active, unleash a Primal Roar, restoring X HP, then gain attack speed, durability, and immunity to CC for X seconds. So she's basically like an Olaf type, where she gets that CC immunity, attack speed, durability. I mean, this ability has it all. It's got attack speed, durability, immunity to CC, heal, and then another heal on top of this. So you're really just going to want to make her go infinite as well. It depends on how much attack speed she's getting from this if you want to build stuff like Guinsoo's onto her, but like certainly seems like she's going to want something like a Guinsoo's just because she wants that just to be getting as many attacks off as possible. So looks kind of crazy, honestly, and has that Juggernaut durability built in here as well. So looks kind of nuts. I wouldn't even be surprised if you want to build just some resists on her so that she starts to go infinite. One of these like gargoyle melee carries, but we will see. The only downside is she's probably a fighter, so you don't want her taking aggro a lot of the time. All right, only 14 minutes and we're on to 4-cost. We can get through it all. We can get through it all if I go quick. Ari, really, really cool. This is a reprint of, I think it's set 2 or 3 Ari. I did not play the set that this was in, so TFT boomers in the chat, let me know, or in the comments. Launch a Spirit Bomb at the target within X hexes that has the most surrounding enemies. So you're probably going to need to put her relatively central, but she will find the biggest clump for herself. Then it deals X magic damage to enemies in a hex radius, reduced by X% per hex away from the epicenter. So she's just doing this big Spirit Bomb. The other thing is that because she's a spell weaver, Um, she is going to be gaining ramping mana. And because she's 100 mana, it's very likely that you have other little spellweavers, stuff like Karma, who's only 40 mana, who are like getting small casts off, ramping up her AP, and then she's going to get a big boom off of the Spirit Bomb. That's the idea that you want to play for with Spellweaver. So looks really, really powerful. There is a Blossom Spellweaver, as we've talked about in Karma, so like very, very obvious trait synergies there. Amumu, the Inferno Juggernaut tank, and before we get into these tanks, I will just say, this is a set with a lot of CC on their tanks. Like, you're just going to see, there's a lot of CC on 4-cost tanks, so make some fights very interesting. So passive, every second, restore some HP and deal magic damage to enemies within probably 1 hex. This does mean that he is going to be, if you get 2 Inferno in, burning the units closest to him. So you definitely want to put him on top of other enemy tanks that you're hoping to heal cut. So built-in Sunfire on this guy, as long as you play 2 Inferno, which, you could easily get like a cannon in later, or some of these other low-cost ones. His active is he deals some magic damage to enemies within X hexes and stun them for X seconds and increase more if the target is burning. So you're really going to like Inferno on this guy. Means that he is going to be stunning a lot of frontline for a long, long time. I doubt that this can reach backline most of the time, but if it is like a huge 4-hex stun or something like that, you can consider putting him on the edge to hit backline. But I'm imagining this is probably like 2 or 3 hexes, and so he is going to, just stun up the front line, and especially stun more of the units that he is hitting. Ancient Sentinel, the blue buff here. Rift Beast, Vanguard, Invoker, which is interesting. So like a tank trait, and like Invoker tends to be more of like a damage trait, but I mean, it does mean that you're gonna have a very, very nice built-in tank for vertical, like 4 or 5 Invoker. Azure Shockwave, gain a shield for X seconds, slam the ground, sending a fissure in the direction of the most enemies. I don't know how long this is, but we'll see. Enemies hit are briefly knocked up, take magic damage, and are mana reaved. And if you give them the blue buff, each time Sentinel casts, allies gain mana regen. So what I will say is this is the Protector's Vow unit 1,000,000,000%. You already want Protector's Vow because he has built-in knockup and built-in mana reave, so you want to get this guy casting. And then the blue buff goes even further and says each time I cast, allies are getting mana gen. So bis on this guy, blue buff, or not blue buff, Protector's Vow. Did I say blue buff earlier? Protector's Vow, Protector's Vow, Protector's Vow. I think I said blue buff because it is blue buff. But Vow, 7 days of the week on this guy. Get a bunch of casts off, get mana gen, CC stuff, mana reave them. Once again, I don't know how long this fissure is. If it's, 4 hexes or something, you can consider positioning it like towards a little bit offset of the middle to try to hit backline, which would be insane, and get that mana reave there. If it's not that long, then you can try to put it on the edge, and get a few mana reaves and small knockups on the front line, which seems good. Aphelios, this other lunar unit, and is a rapid fire, and a cool ability here. So equip Severum and swipe the target X times over X seconds, each dealing a certain amount of damage plus a certain amount of max health physical damage, so can really, really shred through big bruiser front lines and things like that. After the onslaught finishes, fire a blast that deals physical damage split among all enemies within 2 hex radius. So another unit that you're going to be very happy to play for kind of like long fights, yet rapid fire scaled up. He's always going to shred through these giant tanks with this max health damage on top of him. So definitely on like vertical, I mean, you could see, echoes of Bastion Aphelios here. Defender Aphelios, get your Lunar in there with stuff like Loon, and just have him kind of like go infinite, and just kill off big tanks here. So look crazy. Brambleback. The other 4-cost Rift Beast has a passive. When the target dies, leap to the next target, dealing physical damage. So this is kind of like a fixed version of like Volibear or Olaf units, where when they swap targets, leap to the next target. Means that you can't like abuse this and have them jump at the start of combat, but still means that you're going to kill a unit and then jump to the next one. You don't really have to worry about getting like stuck on, like walking up or anything like that. The active, it gains AD for X seconds. During this time, ignore armor. So this is the counter to this defender board that I've been talking about so much, is this guy completely ignores armor while in the active. So definitely, if you think people are going to be playing for mega tanks, you can think about playing some kind of like Brambleback carry and just say, boom, I'm going to ignore all your armor and have a fun time. And then if you do give it the selector here, it gets red buff, attacks burn enemies, and heal Brambleback. This is going to be really nice. Getting healing onto this dude is quite transformative. So I think you'll be, if you're playing for Brambleback, back, a lot of the time you will be giving it the selector. Also means you very likely don't need to build heal cut. Also does mean you could maybe get some kind of synergy in with some of these Inferno units like a Mumu. Brambleback burns them, and then you have a Mumu, doing an extra stun on the units that Brambleback burns. I don't think it's gonna be that crazy because a Mumu, if you get 2 Inferno in, is always going to be, heal cutting the units around him. But maybe you just play 1, like you don't play 2 Inferno, play a Mumu Brambleback. Definitely something I could see happening. Ezreal. For the lovers of Heartsteel Ezreal, there is this one, but slightly different. So he is an Executioner, so he's got that spell crit on deck. Blinks away from the current target, dealing physical damage to them and gaining attack speed. And then every 5th cast consumes the attack speed granted and fires a blast through the target that deals physical damage, reduced by X for each enemy it passes through. So pretty quick cast, only 30 mana, so he's going to be blinking around a lot. You don't even have to feel bad about putting this guy like 2nd or 3rd row and just having him like blink back and survive. But what I will say is that he, gets that big cast as well. He already has Executioner in, already has attack speed built in, so you can just build this guy as like pure damage, honestly. Shojin can be quite good on this guy because he gets the attack speed already, just to get him casting up, and then like Death Blade, stuff like that, and just have him go just blow up people with his huge cast. So looks really, really fun to play around. Lilia here, another favorite of mine. Dude, I feel like they put every champion I like into this set. Fae Defender. Restore X health and send butterflies at nearby enemies. Enemies hit take X magic damage and sleep for X seconds. If they take damage, they wake up and take an additional % max HP magic damage. It's a crazy ability. So it's CC. It's essentially a stun. I don't know how long the stun is, like the sleep, which is essentially a stun, except you can wake them up from it. But it seems it's probably decently long. So that's already a lot. Once again, talking about the CC. Has a built-in heal on a defender, obviously really good. And it actually has damage. It deals max health magic damage when you wake them up. So a few thoughts about this. This should be quite good with AoE units because like ideally you're sleeping them for a long period and then waking them up right at the end to get that extra max HP. Because if they just wake up on their own, then you're not going to get this max HP damage. But if you think about, combining Lilia with something like an Ahri, ideally Lilia sleeps a bunch of guys. They sleep for like a full 1.5 seconds or something like that. Then Ahri gets a big cast off, wakes everybody up, and does a bunch of extra damage. So seems really, really exciting. But AoE seems really, really great with it just to ensure that you are popping everybody's sleeps at the same time. And then we also don't know how many units are actually sleeping. Could be similar to the Hecarim idea. Malphite. Talked about this guy already. He is a monolith, so he just has a gargoyle built in, and then he gains a shield. And then when the shield breaks, he does some damage. Pretty simple. A really, really nice just splash tank because monolith is just his solo trait. And you can honestly just splash in 2 Eldritch, or probably not even play 2 Eldritch and just be fine playing around this guy. Morgana, Covenant Invoker. Her passive giving Omnivamp on a ranged unit has echoes of Vexotech type stuff, except she doesn't scale with Omnivamp at all. She just fires a Dark Blast at nearby enemies, dealing magic damage to them and cursing them. Then she spawns a Withering Zone for the same duration that deals magic damage per second, and then cursed enemies take more damage per curse. So once again, she has this ability where she can just like stack up curses on units. I don't get why she has Omnivamp though. This makes no sense to me. Maybe there's some secret Omnivamp scaling that's not written out here, but I actually don't understand this. Outside of that, seems like a great, Gunblade unit that's like slowly ticking up damage. A very solid Morello applier as well, because she's going to tick up, reapply that Morello, and she also has probably, at least a 1 hex, if not probably like a 1 hex AoE that can also apply it. Nidalee here, Primal Adapter, and she is really, really crazy because she's basically a form swapper. So she gains attack speed for the next few attacks. These attacks are replaced with javelins that deal magic damage. The 3rd attack instead targets the furthest enemy with the least items and deals magic damage. So going to be a little bit hard for you to like snipe backline 100%, but you can definitely snipe random chitters, and then after you kill them, you can have her pop off. So definitely an interesting ability. And then her, what I assume is a D ability, is she turns into a melee cougar fighter that swipes enemies. So you can have a melee or a backliner if you want. I love design like this. I think it's so cool. I really want to know what the primal buffs are before I really can dive into this unit, but I like the design a lot. So many flex units in this set that can be either AD or AP, either frontline or backline. Like it's such such a flex set. It's crazy. Set. The Blossom Brawler, his passive is upon falling below X% max HP, he just gains 100 mana. So he's basically always going to cast. He's guaranteed to cast once per fight. And then his active is he winds up a big punch, healing for X before dealing a bunch of physical damage in a large cone. My assumption is you're just going to build this guy like pure, super tank. Theoretically, this should work with adaptive, where you can gain extra mana off of the mana, like 100 multiplied by adaptive. I think really, though, you're just going to build this guy like Gargoyle, throw him in the middle, have him, you know, drop low, and then get this big cast off, get a big heal, deal some damage, and just have it be a big crazy tank. Maybe can even get a couple of casts off, depending on how much damage he tanks, because this will obviously like overflow. If he goes up to like 120 mana and then casts here, then he's going to, you know, take that 30 up to 150, and then he's going to bank that 70 and then be 70 out of 150, and maybe he can get to another cast. So looks like a really nice tank. This is the only big dumb tank. All of the other tanks provide, and Malphite, I guess, is the other big dumb tank, but Lilia provides CC, Amumu provides CC, Ancient Sentinel provides CC. It's kind of crazy. So of our tanks, only a few big dumb tanks and a lot of like CC tanks out here. All right, Severe. Throw a large crossblade that deals X physical damage to the current target and bounces X time between nearby enemies, dealing physical damage for each bounce. When this kills an enemy, bounce an additional time. So you just want to get her casting, getting the bounces off, killing extra targets. She has the AD from Hunter built in. Obviously, we have 2 primal 4 costs, so you're very likely to play, you know, just these 2 guys here as your 2 primals late game, and that's just your setup here. You do have Vi as like the front line, which can be good, and especially if you can get to, I mean, I guess if you're getting to Lux, then you're like not really you're just gonna play these 2+ Lux. So we will see, but definitely I could see, you know, 2 primal being your damage trait, and then you just play some tank traits on top of this stuff that synergizes with Hunter. Get some Hunters, get some adapters in, and get some traits in that work there. So makes sense. Pretty simple. Soraka, one of my favorite units, was my main for forever in League. She is in the set as well. She's a Flora Fatalis Executioner, and she's perfect for it. She calls down a star on the current target, dealing some magic damage, and then if a star has previously fallen on them, call down additional stars. So she's just ramping multiple casts, multiple instances of damage, synergizes perfectly with Flora Fatalis, giving her more mana gen, healing up her board, perfectly with defenders, playing for long fights. She has Executioner built in already, so you could just build AP on her, Gunblade on her, some mana on her, and just go absolutely going crazy. So she seems nuts, honestly. She seems really fun and very exciting. And then last 4 cost, 27 minutes in. Okay, this will have to be a longer video because I do want to do the 5 costs as well. Thorn Maiden Summoner Zyra. Thorn Maiden is her unique trait. I think I've talked about this, where your team just gains durability, and then some more if her plants are alive. She spawns plants around the battlefield that attack the nearest enemy X times. Each attack deals magic damage. So yeah, just like an AP splashable carry that also gives your team some DR. She's pretty interesting, and definitely if you're ever playing around Summoner, you want to fit her onto your board because she has that team-wide buff. All right, let's get into the 5 costs. We actually talked about Elune already, so we can skip that. In a previous video, if you didn't catch that, watch some other videos. Ash, Blossom Hunter. Fire an arrow through the longest line of enemies that deals X physical damage, reduced by X per enemy hit. The arrow tears open a rift for X seconds that deals X plus X% max health physical damage per second to enemies within and slows them. The way this is written, I imagine this can just hit the entire board. If you put her bottom left and they have a carry in top right, she's just gonna open a rift through the entire board, do max health physical damage to them per second, and slowing them. The big thing is slowing their backline is gonna be really valuable. So very positioning or reliant. Seems kind of insane, honestly. Definitely want her to get to a cast. You know, stuff like Shojin makes a lot of sense. She can even, because this is damage per second, hold stuff like Red Buff, or probably not Morello because she's an AD unit, but like Red Buff, I imagine, is going to be quite a good item on her as well to just apply that. Draven we briefly touched on, but we talked around Bounty Seeker. His attacks target random enemies, apply a bleed, and then you can also double bleed. And then his active throws axes that immediately pop the bleed. So I talked to Disco TFT about this unit. I was thinking he's going to be more of an attack speed carry because he gets bleed on attack and then he has the double bleed on attack potentially. So I was thinking he's going to be more like a Gwinsu carry. Disco thought he'd be more like a Shojin carry, and you just play for this active, pop the bleeds and guarantee it. So only time will tell. This is how I'm thinking of it, as just like you play him Gwinsu, stack up a bunch of bleeds, the big cast pops it and can blow up tanks. The Elder Dragon. This is the cap of Rift Beast, and Apex Predator. Takes up 2 team slots and grants 2 to the Rift Beast trait. So amazing here. Passive, attacks deal X damage to enemies adjacent to the target, so it has like AoE autos. And then active, this is crazy. Become untargetable, fly into the air, gaining Omnivamp. Upon returning, stun all enemies for X seconds and ignite them for X seconds. Ignited enemies take X max health physical damage per second, and then subsequent casts just spew fire out, dealing physical damage and igniting them even more. And then, of course, if you put the selector on it, gets the Elder Dragon buff, damaging an enemy below X% health, executes them. This guy looks absolutely insane because this is only worth 5 gold, but it does take up 2 slots and is going to be worth 2 units. This will be fantastic if you do high roll it on 7, or if you do just find this on fast 9. You can certainly play around this. 2 hex range is always a little bit weird, but means you can put it like second row, not get targeted, and just go absolutely crazy. So seems nuts, honestly. Gnar has a passive to gain X rage per second and X rage per attack. I imagine this is not actually mana, that this is rage that transforms, but I guess only time will tell, because the rest of the ability does not refer to rage at all. But yeah, active, transform into Mega Gnar, leap into a large group of enemies within X hexes, then deal physical damage to enemies within X hexes, reduce their armor and MR by X, stun them for X seconds, then Mega Gnar gains health and replaces ability with Grab and Throw. And Grab and Throw is so fun. Throw the target at the furthest enemy, dealing physical damage to them and physical damage to enemies they pass through. If there's only one enemy left, throw them off the battlefield. That's actually so fun. This is going to be the bane of all melee carries' existences. You imagine a Gnar just like jumps in. You can't really position that much around it because he's always just going to jump to the largest group of enemies. But definitely, we'll see once we get to play around him if there are any ways you can kind of manipulate his positioning, because obviously if you can throw their biggest tank to backline or throw their melee carry to backline, that's going to be amazing. And he will just win these late game duels with Grab and Throw, which is insane as well. Also triple trait. This guy is a monster here, and he's kind of a damage. He is a brawler, but he seems like he leans a lot more into like a damage dealer. Not a true tank, but as I've talked about, there are a lot of tanks in the 5 classes we'll get into. Ivern, Green Father, which this is his unique trait where he grows little hexes on your boards and can eventually grow hexes on the entire board, and basically has like a prismatic built into him. But it's really, really cool. So you want him to cast a lot to get these seeds to grow hexes. He has an interesting passive. Shields from this ability can critically strike with precision, so you don't even mind building stuff like JG on him because you can crit his shield. Then his active, grant allies X shield and damage amp for X seconds, then deal magic damage to enemies adjacent to them after casting X times, also grants stacking attack speed. So you want to play for long fights with him, want him to cast a lot to proc his Green Father and grant him those seeds. And he's a support unit. He's just straight up a support unit. You don't really have to throw items on this guy. He's just gonna be a great unit that gives your units shield, damage amp, and eventually attack speed. So really cool to see support units, especially in the 5 cost space, coming back. I mean, you're never gonna feel bad about just picking up a random Ivern and throwing him onto your board, which is awesome. Kennen, Inferno Executioner. So he charges up, gains X AP per burning enemy. So you definitely want to play this guy with stuff like a Mumu, get a bunch of units burn before he casts. Then he gains a shield, rushes through a nearby group of enemies, dealing magic damage to each one. After rushing, unleashes a Hex Firestorm that deals a total of X magic damage split among all enemies hit for over X seconds. So can, with Inferno, apply heal cut to the entire board, do a ton of extra damage, gives himself AP and a shield, so has a lot of great stuff just built into his kit. You can definitely just build this guy heavy damage, just have him dash in. You can probably, I mean, in a pinch, even throw like a Protector's Vow on him and just use him as a really good way of applying heal cut to the board, but usually you're going to build this guy carry. There's a million Luxes. I cannot go through every single Lux here. There's just too many, especially with the time we have. But generally, she fires a laser towards the largest group of enemies, and then, you know, she'll hit backline a little bit. And then also on cast, allies that share a trait with her gain mana. So if you ever see a Lux for your trait, if you're playing Solar and you see Solar Lux, Eldritch Lux, I mean, you're always going to play her. It's insane. And then, you know, for some of them, she has little like bonuses that she can get. So cool. I mean, that's basically all that you have to worry about there. And then the last two, both 5-cost tanks. So they learned from last set where we had no 5-cost tanks and it felt really, really awkward to go fast 9 and have no tanks to play around. We have Maokai and Taric. Maokai is an old growth. We've talked about this, but he basically slowly gets more HP over time as enemies with an X hexes die. He gets permanent max HP. And then his passive, after every X amount of damage blocked, a sapling jumps towards a nearby enemy, deals some magic damage, and then on death, more saplings jump out. And then his active is he deals magic damage to his target and restores some health. I imagine this guy's going to be a tank and that the damage he does is going to be incidental because he has this missing health heal, and old growth plays for healing and or for tanking, and Juggernaut plays for tanking. Remember as well, Juggernaut is a really nice just 2 trait here that gives your entire team durability. So you're going to be very happy to fit, say, a Maokai plus a Mumu on your board late game and just go crazy. And then our last tank, I think I might have actually talked about this guy already in a previous video. I think we did actually. Yeah, we covered Taric already. But he gives, you pair him with an ally. They both get a shield when one of them drops low, and AoE the shield, and then his ability heals him, and then does some extra bonus magic damage on next few attacks. All right, that's everything. The video is 35 minutes long. Thank you guys for watching. As always, I might do another video on like augments or wisps and stuff like that, just because there's some new stuff there. But hope you guys have been enjoying this. We are not that far out from PvE. It feels far away, but it'll be here soon. And then I'm so excited to jump into this set. Hope you guys have been enjoying all the set coverage. Let me know what the unit you were most excited about in the comments down below. And yeah, any other thoughts I guess you have. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching as always. Bye-bye.